All right, folks, welcome everybody once again to Irish Sports Daily Power Hour. I'm your host, Mike Frank, here with my good buddy, Jamie Uyeyama. Greg Flamong is not going to produce the show. Instead, we've called in the ace reserve in Christian McCollum, who was looking styling, but he's a little shy. He didn't want to be on the camera today. So Yama and I are here to take you home throughout the whole entire thing. Um, Looking forward to it. Certainly things have been going very, very well for Notre Dame. Before we get going, I want to mention great time to sign up for irishsportsdaily.com. You can go to the front page, click on the premium section, and sign up today. Obviously, there's a lot going on with Notre Dame football, and hopefully they will win on Saturday. And then I got to believe that they're going to be in the college football playoff. I don't know that for a fact, but I just got to believe that they are, and hopefully that's going to be the case. And obviously, there's recruiting. Signing day coming up. We don't expect any shenanigans or anything too crazy with that. But then it becomes the 2027 focus after that, and that they've already got a great start on that. It's shaping up to be one of the best recruiting classes I can remember in 2027 if things continue the way they are. So before we get going, I want to mention our first sponsor, which is ESQ Clothing, founded by ND alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ Master Tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms in both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka, book your custom fitting and step into confidence as Chicago's finest. Once again, they have the Black Friday sale, which is 49% off everything that's on their online store. Use the code ISD, and of course, it is esqclothing.com. You can find them there. Once again, esqclothing.com, and use the ISD for code to get your 49% off and all the great clothing that Ge Wang and his staff sell over there. So, all right, Yama. I mean, it's interesting listening to Marcus talking about the game and the rewatch, and boy, I didn't have much to complain about either. I mean, it was it was. I mean, it's one of those things that's crazy. I thought that was interesting. He talked about grading out and who grades 100%, and hardly anybody ever does, that type of thing. But it's interesting. He mentions like Anthony Knapp, being at 100%, and then you go look at Pro Football Focus, and they have him below standard. I don't understand their grades are just a joke, man. They are just a joke. And
especially
look, I mean,
lineman,
it really is. It really is. And so there was so much good in this game. I mean, just so much good and so exciting to watch. But Jamie, the thing that stands out the most to me, before we get going on what looked good, what didn't, that type of thing, the thing that just stands out the most to me is what a masterful job by Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff and the leadership at Notre Dame to get this team up for this game. You hear walk-on quarterback, you hear, really he's a lacrosse star. He's not you hear all these things, and then you watch the film and you see that they've done some good things, but some not so good things. And it would be easy just to come out and kind of go through the motions. But man, this team came so fired up to play, and it was just so exciting to watch from the very first whistle. It was just fantastic. And I can't remember. I mean, just on the rewatch where you're just like, man, when was the last time that they looked this good in execution on all sides of the ball? It just, everything looked really, really good. So to me, I think that that's the most important thing, is that getting a team to focus. And this is what Marcus has done. This team has always improved. They always get better, and they always just lock in their focus and focused at the right time. So very exciting to watch that. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think he's just a tremendous motivator. Obviously, he does a great job of knowing like what buttons to push to get guys ready for these opportunities. And they talked about the one story about him talking about the guy who passed away at the Pitt game, who was a Notre Dame fan, and obviously, talking about that story, and that's something that would tell how important it is to so many people that Notre Dame football is. But I think the main thing is like you've just seen his teams on senior day every time just come out and just destroy people, like destroy teams. And I think it's just one of these things that it it's hard to do that against these kind of opponents. And obviously, not to bring up bad memories, but everybody remembers UConn and Syracuse with Charlie White. It's like
Oh yeah.
those are dark times, right? And Notre Dame, even though that obviously those Notre Dame teams are not close to these Notre Dame teams, but they had no business losing those games. But they were not up. They weren't playing for their guys in this game. It's everyone from you saw how like when Cree Thomas is locking down a guy in the thing, Leonard Moore is doing the
Going crazy.
like going crazy with them on the sidelines. How excited those guys were for Ethan Long, and just after his pick, like every single all those freshmen, but then you see the guys with the seniors, making plays, and it really is that the culture of what they've built, and that's why they come into these games, and it's so easy to just go and obviously what's in front of you. You have to play well and you have to play at a certain standard because the committee's watching, and even like some little slip up could really like screw you up in the rankings. Like Utah plays like a close game that probably shouldn't have been a close game, and they had to come back, and they're probably going to drop because even though it's a win, they're probably going to drop. And obviously, Kansas State's better than Syracuse, but to go out there and like put up 70 points and like to go out there and score 3 touchdowns before their offense even steps on the field, I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that.
It doesn't. And most important, they made a statement, right? Miami didn't make a statement on Saturday. I don't think Oklahoma really made much of a statement either. In that, they won their games, but I wouldn't say they looked overly great doing it. And so, and really even Georgia, I mean, I realize they won 35 to whatever it was, but you think you ought to be able to take that team to the woodshed, and they didn't. And so, and let's be honest, it was Notre Dame senior day. I mean, Notre Dame could have played. It could have got way uglier if they wanted it to, but they had to play a bunch of people. And so, so I just love the fact that they came out, they took care of business, and they did what they had to do. And that's what they got to do this week too. When they go out and play Stanford, just doing it one week doesn't matter. You need to do it every week from now on. And of course, this is the last week they'll have a chance to do that before they figure out what's going to happen in the playoff. But, it's just really important for Notre Dame to play as well as they have the last couple games, make some statements, go out and show that, hey, and look, Pitt showed, hey, we're a good football team. Notre Dame made them look terrible. They made them look awful on offense. Couldn't do nothing the entire day on offense. And then Pitt goes out and I wouldn't say they had a great day against Georgia Tech, but a lot of people think Georgia Tech's pretty good. And their offense did a lot of good things against Georgia Tech. And so it's, you have to make statements when you have the opportunity to do it. And what has happened is teams that Notre Dame have played have followed up, as far as showing that, hey, we're actually better than what Notre Dame made us look. It's just Notre Dame made us look that bad. And that's the thing that's important that people don't understand. It's like, look at Arkansas, look at Arkansas. I mean, they every team they've played, they've had a chance to win a lot of those games. Yeah, in every game. And it didn't matter who it was in the SEC. Every team they've played, they've had a shot. But Notre Dame just absolutely destroyed them. And so, these are the kind of things that I think matter. And that's what the college football, playoff committee is noticing too. They know. You watch this team and you watch this defense and you're like, okay, Notre Dame's defense last year was impressive. It certainly was. Well, you watch Saturday and they look just as good as last year. They really did. And from the front of the line all the way back to everybody. And it wasn't just the starters, Jamie. They put anybody in there and they know what they're doing and they play well. And so very, very encouraging. Last week we talked, a lot of people said, and I know you and Greg said you didn't believe that Jeremiah Love has a shot to win the Heisman. I think he does. I really do, Jamie. And the reason why is because as I said last week, and kind of my rebuttal to you guys is the media loves this kid. I mean, they know that he's the best player in college football. Well, guess who votes for this? The media. The media are the people who vote for this. And so it's not only media, obviously, some Heisman players and some coaches as well, but everybody who watches Jeremiah Love and knows enough about football, they know what he is. They know he's the best player in college football. That doesn't mean he's going to win it. And I think it's going to come down to, does, one of the quarterbacks from Ohio State or Indiana, does one of them have a spectacular day when they play each other? If they do, then, all bets are off. But if they're just kind of average, then I think it has a legit shot. And what I would like to see from Notre Dame, and again, it's not really the Notre Dame way, but let's start pumping it, man. Let's start pushing it out there. Let's get the Heisman campaign rolling. This is such a good story, but we've been around a lot of these kids over the years. You're just not going to find a better person than Jeremiah Love, too. And I think that will hit home as well. People love a good story. And I don't think a lot of people know the Jeremiah Love story as well as we do. And so hopefully we'll see Notre Dame kind of ramp up the machine here and see if they can kind of push him into this race and maybe have a shot to win it. But I think he showed on Saturday. Look, I don't care who you are. You watch that and you're just like, well, I mean, one guy's playing chess, everybody else is playing checkers out there. And that's just really how talented this guy is. And we had a great debate on the board about people saying, is he the best player that Notre Dame's had? And, it's hard to argue that he's not. He doesn't have the same opportunities that some of Notre Dame's former players have had. And look, will that cost him the Heisman? It may or may not, but I guarantee you Jeremiah Love's okay with that, because sure, he'd like to win the Heisman, but you didn't put the miles on your body before you got to the NFL, and you have a chance now to have hopefully a long career and that type of thing. But thoughts on Love? Are you starting to believe?
Well, he 100%. I always believed he should be in New York, or like he should be a finalist. I just thought that the way that it was trending, it just seemed like there wasn't enough, juice for him to get to actually win it. But it is true. I think what you're saying about the fact that he has done something spectacular for X amount of weeks in a row, like he always shows up, and I actually think that Notre Dame's social team has done a great job. Like I saw a really cool thing that they did on Instagram today with like the Beyonce song "Love on Top" with him, which was like, I was like, this is really neat that they did it. They don't do a lot of cool stuff, and they've done a good job overall, but they really like have started kind of like that big push with him. And
yeah,
he is just, it is true. Like Greg and I spoke after the game, and we were talking in the post game, and we talked about kind of like comparing him to Rocket. And it's such a different time, because the way that Rocket Ismail was used, like if he was in today's game, like Rocket Ismail would be like Devontae Smith or whatever, like at Alabama. Like he would be breaking all these records, he'd be doing all these different things. The game was just different then, and what it was. So like if you look at his numbers or Tim Brown's numbers, they don't look like great numbers, right? You're like, what? How do these guys, like, they're not comparable to Will Fuller's numbers. And obviously Will Fuller was great,
sure,
but people view, Brown and Rocket on a different level. But no matter how you slice it, when we're talking about like the greatest players, that like the most talented players, the greatest running back, to ever play at Notre Dame and all that, like, it's pretty tough to pick somebody else over Jeremiah Love. Like, and it's totally different. It's hard. Like when we're talking about like the greatest players of all time. And even Greg and I were saying, like, how could we ever say like, well, there's going to be somebody who is alive to say, well, Johnny Lujak, and he played both ways, and all these, there's so many different things to look at from back in the day and all this. And like, all these great players throughout like who won Heisman's and that are way before any of our times. But I just haven't seen anybody as spectacular as him. Just he's
score
one
anyone.
of one. Yeah.
can score anywhere. And look, I mean, Josh Adams had obviously some great yards, and that was a great season that he had. He's just not the same type of runner. He's just
No.
not. You know, I mean, he's a one cut and go runner. He's not going to make a whole bunch of people miss, you know, in the lane and that type of thing. But he certainly had a great year, and you know, so no disrespect to Josh Adams because he certainly had a great year and should have been in the conversation as well. But something I want to talk about because I know that the defensive lineman in the Yama has to be excited about really the last probably 3 games that we've seen this defensive line play, and it's been a problem, or it's not a problem. It's been a worry of mine, you know, especially with Rubio out. Can you stop the run? Can you do those types of things that you're gonna need to do in the playoff? But I think we've seen guys like Jason Onye ramp up his production, right? We've seen Jared Dawson ramp up his production. Certainly Burnham ramping his up, and good to see Boubacar again out there this week. And I mean, the D line is really starting to, I think, gel into what we'd hope we'd see all year. And once they get Rubio back, things could be a lot of fun. But you know, even Elijah Hughes has played a big role and a big part. Mukum, I mean, you know, hey, he looked darn good out there, and a lot of the times he looks good. And so, I mean, there's a lot of guys, and you know, Chris Burgess, you can call him on that last play. You know, that was kind of his thing, but he did some great things when he was in there before then. So I'm just really excited about what I see about this defensive line, and I was a little concerned, but you know, I don't know, Uyeyama. I think they can hang with this. Anybody. I really do. Your thoughts here?
I've been so excited of how those guys have really leveled up, really. And you can say about who they've played and who they've gone up against, but it's just when you're just watching the film and you're just looking at how those guys are playing specifically, forget about the opponent. Like Jared Dawson is so explosive off the ball in a way that he wasn't earlier in the year. And he was pretty good earlier in the year, but he's just taking it up a level, and you can just see him and Onye really just are playing at such a higher level. And for a good chunk of the season, you Boubacar Traore was the only guy you could point to, say and I would say Rubio before he got hurt. You'd say those 2 guys, and you'd say, well, these are the 2 hosses for them. Those are the guys that you're going to count on. These guys are going to come and bring it, and they're going to be at a certain level this whole time. And it's just really increased, and all the way from where the second team, it's not like guys like Botello and Tuihalamaka or whatever are bad, or they look good and play well when they're in there. It's just that there's other guys who have just leveled up, and Bryce Young has actually played really well too
lately. Yes, absolutely.
But that's the thing is when guys start doing that, it is infectious, and everybody wants to kind of meet that level, and there's just it's a competitive thing, right? But the rotation is so much better. I think this is actually the best rotation that they've had, probably since 2019-ish or whatever, when I would say at edge, that edge group was so good. They weren't as good inside. You know, I think this interior wise, and that was obviously a huge question coming into the season, Mike. And then when Rubio went out, it was even bigger question.
Oh, but sure.
I think right now this is probably the best they've been across the board, just in terms of 11, 12 guys that you're man, they got a bunch of guys that they can make plays and they can do things. And I know we'll get into the KVA thing, and it is a huge loss. It is a massive loss. But when you have the defensive line, and there's so many guys who have really elevated their games, it doesn't become as crippling as it would have been maybe a month ago, right? Where it would have been wow, I don't know about this. But there's so many guys that are making plays now, that are just consistently playing at a high level, that it's just the defense throughout, especially in that front 6, has just been spectacular.
You mentioned the negative, and I hate it. I hate it because I don't think people understand how good King has been playing. He is a really good football player, and he's a very smart football player. And sometimes he even erases mistakes by other people because of his athleticism and just his instincts. And look, they have good players behind him. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a big drop, but look, I would love to have it. This is a loss, and I don't think people realize that this guy's a very good football player. And me personally, I think he's played the best out of all the linebackers this year. Myself personally, I think a lot of them have played well. Don't get me wrong. Drake's done a good job and certainly come on lately for sure. And obviously, the other guys have got in and played very well as well. But he's just, to me, has been the most consistent from the start to now, and that's a tough thing to lose, Jamie. It just is. I'm sure they'll overcome it. I'm sure that they'll have the bodies to handle it. But can they get the same kind of impact? That's going to be difficult. Your thoughts here?
Well, yeah, I think there's two big things, right? And it's that what you just said, the impact, because he makes plays that even when it's not him making the play, he is the guy that forced that play. There's so many plays like that where he just destroys a guy up front, block destruction, whether it's like an ISO or he's stacked up on the line against a tight end. He does so many unique things like on film that just pop out in ways that you can't. I don't think you can really that part. I don't think they can replace, to be honest. Like I just don't think you're going to get that consistently enough, because he also does it in big moments when it's like it's 4th and 1 and it's like you got to get something. How many times has he been one of the guys who's like, well, KVA made that? Like half a dozen times this year in huge moments he has come up there. When he had 10 havoc plays, like he just and the other part of it is, but it's the versatility. So they can replace him as an edge. He's been very good as an edge rusher, but they can replace that because they can use other guys there, right? Like they can elevate like Sneed. Sneed has actually been awesome rushing the passer off the edge this year. He just hasn't got as much of an opportunity because KVA has been the main guy more so when they've been doing that. But Sneed, I actually think could really like take off and replace some of that and do really, really well there. That part is less worrying. The part about him when teams play heavy, teams that can really play heavy. I'm not talking. Most teams can't. That's the thing. Most teams can't do it. But you're going to play like Ohio. If you play Ohio State, you have to think of it in these terms now too, because they're coming into the games that matter. If you play these teams and they have 2 real tight ends that can block, and you're going to be in situations where you're playing 3 linebackers on the field, he's the only guy that can play stacked up on the line of scrimmage and play it like an edge. And there's just no other linebacker that can do that. So they can play Osbury. Osbury's actually played very, very well in the last month specifically too. He's a guy who's really, improved, and I think has played risen up. So I'm not worried about a lot of the stuff when they're playing just in the regular kind of like base defensive stuff, because I think Osbury has done well. It's not to say he's going to be the same kind of playmaker that KVA is, but he's going to be very good. And Bowen has obviously played very well. He's playing at a high level. Sneed, listen, he does come up. He has come up in big games and has stepped up and done stuff, and he can fill a role. He can, the sub package stuff, I think he'll be great. Like I think he'll be great. But it's when you're playing in that way, do you have somebody that could do that? Or do you have to say, well, maybe we have to put another edge out here when we're doing that? Maybe they have to play it that certain way to there. Or can, because Marcus Freeman mentioned Kanukia and Mad Ferrero there. Now, listen, if you watch those guys do it, first of all, they both look great. Like, and I like both those kids a lot, and I think you watch them and you're like, man, if Notre Dame didn't have the linebackers they have, these guys would be playing more.
Yeah,
So
sure.
It's not against them, and I definitely think Madden has improved significantly too. And Kia, I've always been a fan of, and think like whenever he gets out there, you just notice him. He knows how to find the football. He just knows how to find the football. But can one of those guys do that part of it? I don't know, because that's what makes KVA so unique, right? So that is going to be the hardest thing to replace. Now, it may not matter in most matchups. It may not matter, but it may matter when you're playing Georgia or Ohio State or whatever. And I mean, in saying that, they played Georgia last year and KVA wasn't really healthy and they still do it. So, but I'm just saying he was just such an asset. And I mean, honestly, I know he wasn't going to be an All-American this year because he wouldn't have had the numbers per se to do it. But if he's back and healthy, who knows what's going to happen. You always have to wait to see with these injuries and to see how long this is. But if he's back and healthy for the season next year, like I think he's going to be an All-American next year. Like he's been awesome this year. I feel terrible for him.
I do too. And the worst part is when it happens so late in the year. It's just so difficult to do because it really does impact your next year. It really does, and it just takes guys a while to get back to 100%. And even if you can play, that you're still not 100% until later down the road. It just takes a while. So, so we'll have to see how it all unfolds. You look at the college football playoff, and of course, the last rankings was Ohio State, then Indiana, Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Oregon, Oklahoma, Notre Dame at 9, Alabama at 10. Do you anticipate anything changing this week? Do you think anybody's going to jump Notre Dame? What do you think?
I don't think anyone's going to jump Notre Dame. I mean, I don't think anything will change other than I think like Miami could jump Utah there in that spot, so they could get a little bit closer, just because of how that game went. I also think Utah, they're kind of stuck in that Utah has played well this year and all of that, but like they're stuck because they're stuck behind BYU and Texas Tech. I just really didn't see a path for them to get in anyways. They were just kind of blocking Miami, and frankly, they still might block Miami, but like, I don't know if that is going to, I think when they say like the committee says like, you have to look at if they're in the same like cluster, then they would look at Notre Dame in Miami in the same way with the head to head. I still don't think like, if you look at like, say like the analytics and the numbers that they're actually looking at and how Notre Dame has performed compared to Miami overall, Notre Dame is still like in that tier with like the 4 or 5 best teams, and Miami's in the next group. So that is kind of the difference. So I don't think that that will change there. I think Notre Dame should jump Oklahoma. That is my opinion.
I do too.
I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Oklahoma Mizzou game.
They're terrible. They're not any good.
Notre Dame would beat defense. Oklahoma's defense is good. They have a good defense.
They're not bad, but their offense is a joke. I mean, Notre Dame would beat them by 20 points. Notre Dame would beat them by 20 points. I really believe that. I really do.
Well, and really, if not for their defense, I just like they won the Alabama game based on like turnovers and all that. And
Alabama's just not very good.
I don't know how anyone could watch Oklahoma and Notre Dame side by side and be like, yeah, Oklahoma is better. Like, Oklahoma should not get credit for beating Missouri. Missouri sucks.
Yeah, they do.
Bad. They are bad.
Most of the SEC is bad. They're just average teams. That's all they are, is average teams. Miami is better than Oklahoma. Miami's better than Oklahoma.
Miami is better. If I was Miami,
they have a reason to bitch. They do.
They do. They absolutely have.
They shouldn't be ranked ahead above Notre Dame, but they definitely should be ahead of Oklahoma. I really believe that, and certainly Utah. There's, Miami has a reason to complain. And look, I don't think Miami's that great. I think that they're good, but if they get hot and they want to play, they can be good. But first of all, this Power 5 thing, this is dumb. This is just stupid, Jamie. It shouldn't even be in consideration. If you're in the top 12 and you're a Power 5 team, fine, you can get in the playoff. There's just no other reason that should ever be a consideration. I just don't get it. Other than they're looking for the Cinderella story that you'll get in basketball. Well, it's just a different sport. It's just a completely wasted spot that somebody who's actually deserving should have that opportunity. And I just, I don't know. That's part of it. But, look, Miami fans are going to complain all they want, and I understand why. But you know what? You lost to two teams that weren't even ranked. So don't complain, right? Everybody wanted to crap all over Notre Dame because they lost the Northern Illinois. All right. You can do that. And that was a tough loss. And it hurt Notre Dame, certainly in the rankings. We came to find out later, didn't matter. Notre Dame was the second best team in college football last year. But they took a big penalty for losing that game, even though they dominated pretty much everybody else and did what they had to do. They got penalized for that. Well, guess what, Miami? You lost two games like that. Now, they weren't Northern Illinois, but these are not great teams that you lost to either. So it is, that's part of it. And you can't continue to lose games like that and expect to be ranked. So it is what it is. I'm not even concerned about it. I think Notre Dame, as long as they go out and they make a statement again against Stanford and don't lose anybody that's important, because I do think that hurts you as well. As long as they do that, they're going to be in. Now, here's the interesting thing. I saw a lot of people saying if Lane Kiffin decides that he's not going to coach at Ole Miss, and I think that most people would agree that's probably going to be the case. I've seen people say that Ole Miss should be out of the running and shouldn't be, in the college football playoff because they're going to have a brand new situation and blah, blah, blah. How do you feel about that?
I think that's
because FSU kind of had to.
I think
FSU kind of had to. Go ahead.
The FSU had the same thing. But the difference is okay. If say Lane Kiffin left, and then like the OC and the DC, and then whatever, and all these if all the staff members are gone too, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, okay, I don't even know how you handle it. I could maybe understand that then, because then it's like, okay, we're propping it in there. They've earned it on the field.
Yeah,
the players have earned it on the field. They haven't missed. No one is out on the field that isn't there. That was like a contributor that would have been that much of a difference. It's like when you watch. The thing is, the worst thing that happened to Florida State was the committee got to watch them without Jordan Travis.
Yeah, and they saw what they were. Yes.
Yeah, and not to bring up like Drew Pine, but I kind of have to, because it's like when you look at okay, Drew Pine, he comes in the Cal game, and if that was the game that was like a deciding game for Notre Dame to get into a playoff, whatever, the same thing would happen to Notre Dame. Sure. And that's the kind of how it looked for Florida State. So I don't know if it was right, but I understood why that happened. I don't think you could do it if it's like the same players and whatever. Maybe if they want to say, okay, well, maybe we're going to change the seeding a bit because it's like we're picking best and they are going to go down a little bit. Okay, that's fine. But don't take away a home game from them because of it. If you want to make them the 8 seed instead of the 6 seed or 5 seed or whatever, fine. But they don't deserve to be punished where they're out of it or anything like that. I think that would be horrible. I really, really don't think that should happen.
I agree. The interesting thing will be, say Lane Kiffin goes to Florida or goes to LSU. and obviously he's probably going to want to keep some of his coordinators and some of his coaches. They're also going to be trying to sign people, for signing day. They're going to try and be flipping everybody that they can. So, even if the coordinators wanted to coach, there's not a lot of time to prepare for the game, and they're over here focusing on LSU or Florida. So you take those guys out of it, and maybe some of their assistant coaches. It's hard to say that they're going to be the same team, but I 100% agree with you. It's not fair to those coaches, and I think Saban was right. I don't. A lot of people know I'm not a big Nick Saban fan, but he is absolutely right. You shouldn't be able to just do this until the games are over. You shouldn't be able to just and of course there's going to be back and forth about them talking to this agent and that agent and this and that, but you shouldn't be able to come out and say I'm taking the LSU job, or any of those types of things. It shouldn't happen that way. And I feel bad for Ole Miss because the players. I mean, those guys. It's not easy to win all the games they have, and they've sacrificed and did all they had to do. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. Last thing from the game, and anybody you want to single out that you thought really stood out to you, did a great job in the game?
Well, I mean, we could obviously Jalen Strobin. You can kind of mention what a game. You just love to see when a guy gets an opportunity and really, takes full advantage of it. I mean, he was phenomenal in the game. He obviously had 8 solo tackles, the pick 6, pretty much, at the block punt, he had 2 tackles for loss. Like, the guy was an animal. He was incredible in the game. I mean, I'll just say that I just think that, like, we could also probably shout out Ethan Long, who, we have mentioned multiple times, and you've mentioned multiple times that we have heard like a ton of good things about him in camp during the season, and it's just
he's
they
always
weren't
around
lying.
the football. Yeah, he's always around the football. He was all in high school.
Yeah, and that's just like also an example of one of these things too, where maybe he wasn't getting the hype that some of the other guys were, but that's another guy who he was like, he worked out in camp. They like what they saw, all these kind of things. And probably if he wasn't from the New England area and he got a little bit more exposure, he would have been higher ranked. He would, all that kind of stuff, kind of goes into it. So I don't think anyone's had I can't really remember a freshman on defense coming in and having that kind of series where just one series where you're like, oh, he's got 2 picks on this one series. And he's like getting a tackle for loss. He's like, wrapping up a guy in the sidelines. It was like, they had to like calm him down because he was playing so good. Like, I mean, obviously he was incredible. I mentioned Kia and Ferrero, like obviously those guys kind of stood out with what they did when they were in there for the young guys. Kenny Minchie and Aeneas Williams, it's like pretty much the same thing as like Minchie has basically done everything like what Steve and Jelly did last year when he came in to like garbage time. You're like, yeah, this guy's really good. Like, it's just, it's undeniable that he's a good player and that he's, also like he deserves to play somewhere next year. Right? He's going to be there and he's going to make an impact. And obviously Aeneas Williams has looked great. And I just think overall, I would say just the defense in general, like, I just think everybody was just so on point where, like we talked about, you don't grade out 100. Like it's impossible pretty much for guys to grade out 100 over the course of a year. Like, but I mean, a lot of guys had like high 80s, 90s grades in that game.
Sure. Yeah. 3 guys I wanted to mention, 3 freshman offensive linemen, Will Black, Cam Henron, and Matty Augustine. Those 3, you put them in the game, man, and they're not far off from what everybody else is. And man, you just add some weight and some strength on these guys, they're going to be good football players. I liked their film in high school. I thought all 3 of them had but man, like rise has been very, very impressive, because they are freshmen. And, it's rare that freshmen get to play some that they have, but, when they get out there, they don't look lost. They really don't. And they did a really good job in a lot of what they did on Saturday. So, very excited. This freshman class got some really good football players in it. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right. We're going to ask some questions from Power Hour. We haven't had those in a while. Before we do, we wanted to mention our other sponsor, which is H2 Pickleball. Much like the football team has found its identity in making a statement to the outside world, so too has Irish Pickleball Crew. Fellow alums Todd Hill, founder of H2 Pickleball, Jack Gibbs, and Will Howells, a top 10 pickleball pro, have renamed the ND Pickleball Crew League to the Irish Pickleball Crew League. To announce its presence, they have launched a new website, and you will not believe this. It did not show up on my thing when I printed it, but I'm going to find it real quick. I apologize. Did I delete it? I hope I didn't delete it. Oh, man, here it is. All right. The new website is irishpickleballcrew.com. Once again, irishpickleballcrew.com. You can go to their new website to sign up for the free membership to stay abreast of the new crew pickleball events, to buy merch, and to get discounts on ND paddles and future ND athletic events. Be sure to visit H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive, Mishawaka, Indiana. Once again, you can find that website at irishpickleballcrew.com. All right, Yama, we got some questions here. We're not going to get to all of them because there's a lot. So we'll get to the ones that I think are going to matter. Would you rather get the 10 seed and go on the road to Ole Miss or Oregon, or get the 9 seed and head to Oklahoma? Let's hope we get the 7th or 8th seed. Which would you rather play, Jamie?
I think it would be better to go to Oklahoma. None of those places are like friendly places to play. Like, let's be honest, it's not like it's hard to win in Oklahoma. Like, they have an incredible record at home over the years. Like, just that even when they've been bad, they've been good at home. So, that is none of those places. Like, I would say probably Oregon would be the worst place to play. I think I think they have the best
place
team.
Gets crazy.
And that place is nuts. And I also think, like, if you had a choice, even though I don't think Ole Miss's defense is great, I think that their offense is like one of those, because the difficulties, and if Lane is coaching and they're doing all they're going to score points. And I think the team that has the most holes out of that group is Oklahoma. So for me, Oklahoma for sure.
I agree with that mostly. First of all, if Lane is gone, of course you want to play Ole Miss. Everybody wants to play Ole Miss at that point. But if he is there, which I highly doubt, but even if he is, I just don't think the defense is good. I really don't. And I think Notre Dame would run all over that defense and control the clock. I think their offense is good. I'll tell you what, if Notre Dame had King, then I'd definitely say Ole Miss. But I worry a little bit about their quarterback. He has the ability to do some things with his legs that are a little bit concerning. And those types of quarterbacks have given Notre Dame some fits where, Mateer from Oklahoma isn't quite that guy. And I think Notre Dame could tee off better against him. I'm one of those guys, Jamie. I don't think the SEC is that good. I just don't. I think that they're a bunch of teams from 8 to 20 in college football. They're going to get ranked higher because of the SEC. I'm not that sold on anybody in that league. I'm just not. And I guess we'll find out whether I'm right or not. Let's see. Next question. How good is the SEC? A&M beat Notre Dame. Outside of that, what big wins do the SEC have out of conference? Bama lost to FSU. LSU beat a bad Clemson team. What else? I'm not convinced it's a great conference. I agree with you. Thoughts? Anything from you, Jamie?
Yeah, I think all of that is true. Like they also don't have a lot of teams that they schedule out of conference, right? Like Florida played Miami, but Florida's down and all that. Like there's not a lot of, Georgia's going to play Georgia Tech. Georgia, they should kill Georgia Tech. They really should. Like,
But they barely
then
did
again,
last year.
they barely did last year at home. So, you never know what's going to happen in that. But like,
You need King to have a big game.
I'm
King
of
needs
the
to have a
same.
monster game.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm of the same opinion of you on the SEC in terms of like, I think there's a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
But
they all could beat
don't
Notre Dame if they didn't play well. They could all
Yes.
beat Notre Dame if they didn't play well. Yes.
but they don't have like, I know A&M is undefeated, but A&M obviously they're not that close to being like a 3-loss team. I don't think they are close to being, what Alabama was when like Alabama's really got it going, or Georgia. Like Georgia, you would say is the best team in the SEC this year, and they're just not quite they're not what they were. They're not what they were. So,
do you think they're better than last year?
I think the offense is better this year.
Yeah.
I think
I'd agree.
I think the offense is better. I think Gunner I'd like him a lot more than Carson Beck, just in terms of like, he's just a gritty guy and a tough guy, and he's going to make plays with his legs. And I think they're more explosive. I think they're better on offense in general than they were last year. And that makes them a little bit tougher, but I don't think they're as talented on defense as they were last year, even though I think the defense underachieved last year. Like, they don't have a Jalen Walker who's just like, I mean, if you go back and watch the Notre Dame game, Jalen Walker was pretty much unblockable in that game for Notre Dame, but it's just like they did enough to just move the ball when they had to. And they don't really have that guy who can like take over like usual. And I think that's the big difference between Georgia and before, is like they used to have a guys where it's like their fourth linebacker was like a first round pick, and they just don't have that right now.
Yeah. Question here. What is ND doing to solidify Freeman's confidence that we are serious about winning? I would hate to have another Kelly situation. Look, Notre Dame is 100% behind winning right now. They are. I think I know a lot of people are concerned about Marcus Freeman leaving because of all the open jobs here. And let me tell you, folks, the money that I've heard is crazy. I mean, the money that I've heard that these coaches are going to get is crazy. But I also think Notre Dame is going to have to pay up too, and I'm sure they will. And but the numbers that I've heard from 16, 17, $18 million a year. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I've heard, and that is crazy that the coaches are going to be paid that, but that's what they're going to have to compete it against. And I'm not concerned about Marcus Freeman in a college job. I'm just not. Look, he's been offered probably every job that's out there right now. I guarantee you he's been offered every single job that's been offered, and has not said yes, and I don't think he will to any of those jobs. So I'm not concerned about it. But Notre Dame has done a great job with improving facilities, giving him what he wants. They're also, getting more personnel and administrative people to help the situation. I think they're doing what they need to do, and I don't think Marcus Freeman has a whole lot of complaints right now. Maybe a situation where, can we get a few more undergrads in from the portal? I brought the thing up before. What if, say, Deuce Knight, who had a great game, what if all of a sudden he wanted to come? Do you take him? Because it's like, hey, you okayed him once before. You were going to let him in, and all of a sudden he wants to come. And when Notre Dame has a hot quarterback like CJ Carr, a lot of receivers who Notre Dame were in on, and probably didn't choose Notre Dame because they just didn't think that Notre Dame was going to throw the ball or had the ability to throw the ball like they're going to with CJ Carr. What if one of those guys all of a sudden says, you know what, I really wanted to go to Notre Dame, but I didn't believe, but now I believe. So I think those types of things are the things that could help. If they could improve anything, that would be it. But I don't think that there's much that there's to be worried about right now. Wasn't there a clause that Notre Dame would get in the playoff if they were in the top 12, no matter what? Did that go away? No, that they're still in if they can get in the top 12. Yeah, so that's just going to be the case. We already talked about KVA and what that is. Next question. Have you heard any concerns with the turf at Notre Dame Stadium? And in your opinion, should you consider returning to grass? And this happens every time somebody gets an ACL or some sort of knee injury or whatever. Everybody's like, it's the turf. But it happens everywhere. I mean, guys get injured outside of Notre Dame too. That it's not just Notre Dame that this happens. I highly doubt Notre Dame is going to go back to turf. I'd be shocked. Maybe they will. Maybe I haven't heard anything. But this is just kind of what it is at this point. And I know there's a lot of people who love grass and blah, blah, blah. But I'd be surprised if anything changes. Where's
Also,
Cole Mullen?
Go ahead. Sorry, Mike. But I just wanted to say that I don't think that Notre Dame certainly, there's a lot of places that get talked about as like the Meadowlands or whatever gets talked about as like that field turf has like destroyed so many, like all players in the NFL say it's terrible, right? You don't hear that about Notre Dame Stadium. Like it's not a thing. And I think if it was a thing, that is something that Marcus Freeman would be like, they're fixing it in the offseason, So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Interesting question. Is the passing defense really better, or has Notre Dame not played teams with two true 2 to 3 wide receiver threats? Well, my opinion is they have gotten better, but I think it's also because they've chosen to be more aggressive and at times and impact the quarterback. They chose not to do that against the Miami quarterback, and I don't understand why. And I get it a little bit more from Marcel Reed. He's a guy who certainly can hurt you if you get out of lanes and stuff like this. But I think the biggest difference has been, one, probably understanding of what they're doing, but two, they're just playing more aggressive, Jamie. They're sending more players, and the way they're sending players is far more aggressive and different. I think that's been the biggest difference. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think the pressure has been way different. Like they're winning as pass rush. Like they'll win when they rush 4 and all that. They're doing better job of that. But they're also doing so much more. Like when it's second and long, and you're running a zone, you're running some kind of zone coverage, but you're bringing a pressure along with it, and then it looks like maybe you're bringing a man pressure, but you're bringing zone pressure. Or this looks just like the zone pressure before, but then they're bringing a 6-man pressure. Like, so they're doing a lot more disguising and confusing things, and that is something that happens like naturally throughout the course of a season. But also, like, that's just something I think, like, if you were going to be super critical of Chris Ash, was like, they didn't do that kind of stuff before. So it's like, even though I know Marcus Freeman said, yes, a lot of the stuff, they are playing better in the zone and doing all that kind of stuff. Yes, that is happening. But also too, they added stuff that they were doing before, and they changed certain philosophical things that made a big difference too. So there's that, like, just numbers wise, the pass defense has been great. And they're like 15th in passing success rate, 22nd in EPA per dropback. When you consider that they're like, at one time they were like 130th, like after 3 games. So it's like, yeah, they've done an incredible job. Yeah, they haven't played too many teams that have like 2 elite, but how many teams have that? Like USC is one of the only teams that has that. And Ohio State has that. Who else has that in the country? Like, that is a real thing that not a lot of teams have. And that's why, but the thing is you should be able to dominate the teams that don't have that. And that's what they're doing now. And that's, you could say it's way, way better. And they're also healthier in the secondary. And that has made a huge difference.
All right. Take Ohio State out of the question. Which team is the worst potential matchup for Notre Dame in the playoffs? And what team do you most want to play? I'm dying to smash Texas Tech myself. That's what the guy said, not me. Your thoughts, James?
I mean, I would say that when you take Ohio State out of it, because they're the only real team that I think is, I don't think anyone wants to play. I would say just Oregon, because I do think that they are like, even though they're kind of beat up, so maybe they would be better to play because of that. Like, I just think overall, like talent throughout their roster, like I think they just got a bunch of athletes and they play like they'll play like a pretty fast paced style on offense. And that's always just tough to prepare for. So I'd probably say Oregon or Georgia would be the next one. Just because I said, I mentioned Georgia, or Georgia's got the running part with the quarterback that makes a big difference. And I think in that is always tough to deal with as well. I mean, I do think Texas Tech is massively overrated because they play in the Big 12 and they're dominating.
Sure.
Not to say they're not a good team. They are a good team, but I do think they wouldn't be. I think it would be fun to play them just to. That would be a fun team for any of these teams to beat, because then it's like, oh, well, you bought all these guys and then we beat you anyways. Like that would be fun for any kind of matchup. I don't know. I mean, I think what would actually be awesome, and remember everyone was talking about it last year, is if Notre Dame somehow get a home game and they played Alabama at home.
Yeah.
Would just love to see it. Would just love to see it come up in the cold Alabama. And just let's see it.
What do you think of what do you think of the DeBoer to Penn State rumors? Have you heard that?
I did hear that.
I thought that was interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if he got out of there, because he's not the most beloved guy right now. And look, if Penn State's paying the kind of money I hear, I mean, why not, man? I would consider it.
I thought he made a mistake leaving Washington, to be honest.
He shouldn't have done. Yeah, he really shouldn't have. I agree. All right, we got some more questions here. Excluding the kicking game, what position group, offense or defense, gives you the most chills heading into the playoff? And I mean, I hate to say it, but I'd probably say offensive line. And it's not that they're playing bad. It's just, they're banged up. Yeah, we got to get Joe Otting. We got to get his ankle healed, because I think when he does, he's going to be pretty good and we'll be fine. I just think Notre Dame needs to get a little bit healthier up there. I think they're all probably nursing some injuries and this and that. It'd be nice to have a couple weeks off to kind of get them healed up and everything. But to me, I think, and I think that this is a good offensive line. Don't get me wrong; they are good. It's just, can they hold up against Ohio State? I think they can for pretty much anybody else, but I don't even think Ohio State's defensive is all that great. It's just Notre Dame struggled so bad to run the football against them last year. They're going to have some ability to make them back off a little bit because they can throw the ball better. It's interesting. I don't know if you saw the film guy breakdown on Jeremiah Love, but he was talking about the 3-2 cover look. Where basically they put you put your two wide receivers out there, and Notre Dame was not getting a lot of times that 3-man look with any kind of high because they weren't afraid of Notre Dame's receivers. Talking about how that opens up some running lanes, because you really only have to beat one safety at that point if you have everybody on the other side. So it's interesting, and I think that can help Notre Dame in some regards. But at the same time, I just got to see it, because they didn't look that good against Miami, who I think is a pretty good defense. And will they look the same? I don't know. So they haven't played the kind of defense that they're going to face in the playoff. They just haven't played that yet. So we'll just have to see what happens. But that would be my statement. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think that's more than fair, because that is the one thing. If that is really the only X factor, if they were going to play Miami again, you would say, well, they still have those edges that are just incredible. I think Notre Dame would be incredibly stupid, and they should fire the offensive staff if they decided to not chip the ends on
Sure.
long yardage stuff again. And in that game, I think they would do stuff differently projection wise. They would have to. It would be the dumbest move of all time if they didn't. So I think some of that kind of stuff changes. And I also think, that Notre Dame's O-line is better than they were then too. But still, that is something that I did kind of talk about like a couple shows ago, how no one really has those guys inside, those war daddies inside that are just like so dominant that can really control a game in a way. So that is the only thing that I think where Notre Dame, where you do have questions about, especially the interior because of all the new guys in there, but like they're not going to play too many guys that just have really, really like high level D tackles. There's just not as many out there this year. So in that way, I think teams, because if teams have that, and then they don't have to have numbers out, they can put numbers in the passing game and say, well, we can stop the run with less guys inside. That changes everything that you want to do.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that's the thing.
All right. We got two more questions here. One guy wants to know, will Rubio and Billy Schrauth be back for the playoff game 1? Yeah, I believe they will be, just based off of things I've heard. I think they will be. I don't know that for a fact, but I definitely think that it's trending that way. And then we got one more here, and Ash got a lot of heat early this season. Can you compare Golden's first year to Ash's? Some ideas. Is the defense operating at the same level under Ash or better? Who's been more successful in your opinion? And is the ceiling higher with Ash? Yeah. Go ahead, Jamie. I'll let you answer first.
I don't think you can really compare the two, to be honest. Like, I know that a lot of people want to do it and I see different people on the beat kind of say, well, this is what happened, whatever. It's so different because of who Ash inherited. The talent is just so much better on this team than it was on that team. So it's not really fair to Al Golden to say, well, this is how Golden's team was like. Yeah, look at the difference. Look at the number of NFL guys and guys who are going to be like really high picks and all that kind of, they didn't have Leonard Moore back then, right? Like Ben Morrison wasn't starting at the beginning of the year, right? Like all of these kind of things, like they weren't the same. Like I think obviously the highest peak of Al Golden, like last year, the defense was a top 3 defense in the country. Like this defense hasn't reached that peak yet. I think, if you probably look at like the last 8 games, you'd say they're probably playing at a top 10 level. I think that's probably fair to say.
I'd say at least. Yeah. At least.
At least maybe top 5. And I do think they can still kind of level up. So I do think there's more of a ceiling there, but I don't want to say like, and I don't want to take anything away from the job that Ash and the staff have done in general, but it's just a lot easier to be a great coach on defense when you got good players. It's just what it is.
I agree. And I think that you're seeing the ascension, like, Adon Schuler playing better than he was at the beginning of the year. Tay Johnson playing way better than he was at the beginning of the year. And even guy like, Christian Gray is back to pretty much what we saw before. He's starting to get healthy and become the kind of player that we've known he can be. So that helps when you have the secondary. But the other thing I will say about Ash is, we had our problems at the beginning with what was going on. I think he's adjusted and understands, and that's what's encouraging to me. He understands what he has now and how to use those pieces. And I think he's done a really kind of masterful job on some of the zone blitzes, the types of stuff he's run there, and getting his front four to play better within in the games that they're playing as well. And look, the linebackers have been more effective too in blitzing and creating havoc back there. So it's been encouraging to watch because when you see a guy get into it and he's calling things for the first time, you're like, does this guy just not know the personnel, or is he just not smart enough to figure out what to do with the personnel? Right. I think that part of that was not knowing the personnel as much as he did, and also what they do as well. And I think that that's why things were a little bit slow to get to where they are right now. But it's nice to know that he recognized, hey, if we do this, we're much more effective, and he's getting that figured out. And I think now that he has a better understanding who this roster is and what his pieces are, because you will play KVA different than you'll play at Jalen Sneed, and you know, when you have different guys out on the field, you have to do different things, and so I think that he gets that now. And you look at the talent that's coming up behind some of those guys, and there's some really talented football players coming in this class coming in, the freshman class, some of the sophomores, and it's exciting. And I mean, I'll tell you this, I hate to look forward to next year, but you know, if you can get Onye back and you find just one good interior defensive lineman, and you get Boubacar back, look out. Notre Dame will be very difficult to beat next year. Very, very difficult to beat. And, you know, that's just because you got so many talented players, and it you know, it'll depend on who all comes back. And you know, if those guys don't come back, that doesn't mean Notre Dame won't be successful, but it certainly would be nice to have them back. So, all right, folks, that's going to be it for the show. I hope you enjoyed that. We will talk to you next week on Power Hour, and hopefully after a big win over Stanford. Jamie will have all the kind of details on Stanford coming up here. So go to the front page of Irish Sports Daily and look for his preview. I suppose that'll be up on Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay. That'll be up on Wednesday. And then happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Travel safe. Enjoy your time with your friends and family. And I don't know. Oh, by the way, probably not going to be a post-game show, right, Yama? I mean, it's
it's going to be at like 2 a.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's going to be really late. Plus, Jamie's got his instant reaction, and you know, so they'll do something the next day because it's just going to be too late. So, just thought I'd let everybody know that beforehand. So, all right, that's going to be it, folks. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week on Power Hour.